would be crazy too if you were operating on 20 cups of coffee. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And I don't mind what you did, but how you did it. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film All the President's Men.
And what year is this again?
1974.
1974. Why are we going back in time like this?
It was a simpler time, Shahir.
It was. Conspiracies were called rat fucking.
Yeah, and when the rats were fucking, then you could say, "Stop it, rats," and they said, "I'm so sorry," and they resigned from office.
Well, we can only hope. Also, this episode we actually put off a couple of weeks. We were planning to do this shortly after the passing of Robert Redford, but unfortunately, life caught up with us and a few other things, and we had to kind of push this out a little bit. But we're happy to be doing it now. I suggested this one certainly in terms of looking at the body of Robert Redford works. The other Robert Redford's works. The other one I was thinking about definitely that I would have really loved to have done was Quiz Show. Big Quiz Show fan?
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I don't remember much of it.
Well, Quiz Show and All the President's Men are movies that like rotate my comfort movies list. Like they're on my Apple TV in terms of like I can access this anywhere at any given moment and I can watch it. So I was very, very happy to do that. But I also, I listened to the audiobook of All the President's Men, the Woodward and Bernstein book as well. So I kind of found myself falling into a Watergate rabbit hole, which I think is the sign of a middle-aged life.
I think so. I think you've officially passed that, and now you are beyond middle age, even by a few days.
Oh my God, by decades at this point, probably. But I was excited about this one. How about you?
I have not seen it in years.
Yeah.
I was more excited about how I would react to it again because I remember liking it fine when I watched it the first time. But I think my reputation here has been that of someone who does not typically enjoy the research film, the journalists doing journalism films.
And this is probably the penultimate.
And this is the penultimate one of those.
The ultimate. I actually got corrected about penultimate.
Oh, yeah, because it's the ultimate. Because penultimate's a second to...
It's a second to...
Well, maybe I mean that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I meant.
Oh,
Just like when I said 1974, I was referring to the year that Nixon resigned, not the year that this movie was made, which was 1976.
It came out in 76.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And was nominated for several Oscars and famously lost to Rocky. But was nominated alongside Taxi Driver, Network, and Bound for Glory, which is a movie I've not seen in a while, but we did Complete Stranger last year with The Adventures of Woody Guthrie, so I was kind of curious to check out Bound for Glory, to recheck out Bound for Glory. I'm also a big fan of Alan Pakula, or Pakula. I want to say I love The Parallax View and Clute, so it was kind of cool just to kind of think about his body of work over time as well. But before we get into that, we have some emails. Thank you everyone who's been writing us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Apologies that we've been taking a little bit of time to get through them. We have had guests, we've been traveling, we've been doing stuff. But I will read out this first one, if you don't mind, from an old friend, Laura, who we haven't heard from in a while, who's one of the OGs of the the Topam fam, I guess you'd say. Hey guys, it's been a minute. I hope you've been well. I noticed this feeling when listening lately that I thought it might be sweet to share. I think I first listened in 2016, 2017. And while I can't keep up with all my podcasts anymore, it's become this lovely feeling of checking in with old friends whenever I do catch a recent episode. It's so warming to hear the different life stages, as you say, Watergate middle age life, you've been through and how your movie tastes have evolved. Anyway, how are your parasocial relationships going? I recently listened to the Sorry Baby episode and loved the discussion. Couldn't help but want to join in. It's a lot of what I've been trying to write for years thematically, and my reaction was not, damn, they got to it first, but thank God there's finally a movie like this. I've not experienced what Agnes does, but was close to people involved in a similar event and have been one step removed. It was absurd to process. I craved comfort from stories showing people going through the same thing and never found it. So I was floored by how much Sorry Baby captured that weirdness. I spent so many scenes thinking, yes, they did that feeling. I also love friendships like this portrayed. The intensity, meaningfulness, but also playfulness of female queer relationships is a favorite genre of mine. Frances Ha, Beautiful World, Where Are You, and Broad City struck a similar chord. The one part I saw differently was Fran representing a version of Agnes. I read it more like a almost inevitable path of close friendship shifting when romantic relationships stick. Like Frances Ha, we begin when change is already in motion, friends reuniting, not in their peak. Agnes still needs this support to cope. while the friendship evolves. I thought the ending was more about different life stages, not what could have been. The film explores maturity in the context of trauma, how needing support can feel in conflict with the independence expected in adulthood. The sandwich guy dialogue cements this, and Agnes feeling frozen in time. It's not about the romantic timeline loss, but about pace. Finally feeling up for moving forward with her. Wasn't expecting to write a whole essay, but I guess I have a lot to say. Hope it was an interesting read. Just saw one battle after another episode just dropped, so getting to that ASAP. Until next time, Laura.
Laura, thank you so much, Laura. I think that's an excellent, an interesting read on it. I know I'm trying to remember because life is a pudding at this point, and I'm having a hard time sort of recollecting what we've seen. But the sort of different stages of where you are in friendships does definitely ring true for me in that read. Actually, on that note, Shahir, quick question.
Okay.
I have a life-changing thing coming up. I'm getting married soon.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You've known for a while.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you would like to be one of my groomsmen.
Oh, shit. Are you asking me right now?
I am asking you right now, and we can cut it out if you say no.
No. I am honored. Thank you. Yes, of course I will be one of your groomsmen.
Excellent.
What are the tasks that I have as groomsman? Is it a hangover style situation where I need to take you out and get you beaten up by Mike Tyson? Is it a very bad things type situation where we need to murder a hooker? Apologies,
no.
that is not been popular these days. But look, I can make whatever you need happen.
It's going to be more of a Weekend at Bernie's situation where when something inevitably goes wrong, we're going to have to pretend a corpse is still alive for various reasons. Very publicly, where wackiness ensues.
Okay, well, I will get. I think the skill set that I will bring to the table is I will learn how to do makeup. So I will be able to add rouge to the deceased person's cheeks.
Wonderful. Yeah. I'm glad this is where this went.
Immediately. Well, thank you very much.
Of course. I was
graciously accept.
Excellent. I'm sorry to have sprung it for you on the podcast. It was a debate between Jamie and I whether or not I should. And I was actually not planning on doing it on the podcast. Like, oh, it's a personal thing and maybe we shouldn't. But Laura, to be perfectly honest, your email about changing life moments and the way friendships evolve kind of really did tee that up pretty well.
And now that you're a creator and I'm not, should we make this a creator event and like create content for the podcast during the wedding? Should I be making vlogs while we're out there? Whatever you need, man, I'm going to be there.
No vlogs, no content. This will be a content-free zone. Okay. But I appreciate there more information to come. Okay. It's still we just booked our DJ today. Like I'm slow on the uptake here.
It's not DJ Duck Hunt Demon.
DJ Duck Hunt Demon. Everyone has been asking if DJ Duck Hunt Demon will be in attendance, and I have to check his schedule.
Yeah, I'm sure there is probably plenty of opportunity for a quick drop-in sesh.
Of course. Who knows?
We've never told the listeners what my DJ name was, right?
No, I don't think so.
Do you remember what my DJ name was?
No.
Because every now and again...
you went to... We're talking about summer houses where we all did DJ names and sets and things like that.
I only went to one summer house, and every now and again on Instagram, someone will peep the playlist, and my DJ name will be there. And I thought my DJ name was brilliant.
What was your DJ name?
DJ Wellen Dowd.
That's right. Wellen Dowd was it's a real good DJ name.
Yeah,
the thing I remember, now we're going off on tangents. The thing I remember about that particular summer house was you brought what summer house is, Topam fam, if you don't remember from 100 episodes ago when I'm sure we mentioned it before, was a thing that the MTV group put together where a bunch of us friends would just rent a house in various places to just go party and to essentially drink our faces off for a while and a long weekend. And we eventually made Beer Olympics and we had DJ sets with all these elaborate things. And I made video playlists of edits that took me weeks to do.
This is what I'm saying for the wedding.
Maybe we'll see how it goes. Okay. But the thing I remember about Shahir's one summer house was you brought the board game Agricola.
Yes.
and while the board game Agricola is a wonderful game,
it is not a game for summer house.
It is not a game for summer house. And I remember we all started playing it and then people just kept slowly dipping out. And by the end, it was you, me, and Lauren Peckwasser.
Yeah.
And we were the only ones still there. But I was making up like weird narrative reasons why our sheep needed blood.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm in it, but I have to really push through to get through in this particular situation. That's my memory.
Every time I
to
try to play Agricola now, it takes like Agricola, for those listening in who like board games, Agricola is one of my favorite board games. It takes a solid month of play to like really get good at it.
Yes.
So which means you have to commit to like people coming over to your place. And I think the gameplay for Agricola is something like 45 minutes per player.
Yeah.
So it's a really long game and it takes a while to kind of get into it. But once you get into it, it's awesome.
Not exactly the place when people are waiting for the Flip Cup tournament and DJ sets to start.
Yeah. But you know,
but you tried and the swing is appreciated.
And I never came back.
And you never came back. Well, speaking of those who do come back, Hassan has written us in.
Hey, and Hassan, just putting it out here, has had a life change as well.
All right.
Read it.
Okay. Says, hey guys, hope you're doing well. Couple of weeks ago, I was stuck in hospital on account of my newborn. Hey, congratulations. Which gave me ample time to catch up on some movies, including Mississippi Burning, The Conversation, William Friedkin's The Sorcerer, which, by the way, has, in my opinion, the edge of your seat moment in the form of that infamous bridge scene, and finally, Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia. And man, PTA is among the upper echelon of directors whose sense of strategic song placement is second to none. Now I just gotta go watch The Master, Phantom Thread, and One Battle After Another. Still think that Boogie Nights is his magnum opus. Wish you all the best, Hassan. P.S. If you guys have Criterion Channel, which I believe Shahir does,
We do.
I cannot recommend their animation offering, including Wink Wink, Ghost in the Shell. That Hassan's been trying to get us to do Ghost in the Shell forever. And Satoshi Kon's Paprika, which I believe I have seen, which makes Christopher Nolan's Inception look so dull. Yeah, thank you, Hassan.
Hey, Hassan, congratulations. And
Congrats.
Both Laura and Hassan, I'm so thrilled that in certain moments in your life, you were willing to, you thought of us. It's a privilege to be thought of in these moments of your life. And we thank you for being there. And congratulations again, buddy. I have been there. In fact, this podcast started when my son was born. I wrote Hassan an email, so I covered a lot of this ground with them. But for anyone else listening in, we started doing the Star Wars entire series run when my son was born. So I would get up at 3:00 in the morning when my son was crying. I would feed him, and then he would kind of slowly drift off to sleep as I would watch young Padawan grow into the young man that he would eventually become over the course of a few nights. And so I have been there. Hassan, I mentioned to Hassan if there's anything we can do podcast wise, and he was like, review Ghost in the Shell. And I was like,
all right. You know what? In honor of the addition to your family, we will do it I will say in the coming weeks.
It'll be
weeks, not months, weeks.
It's in the docket.
It's in the docket that we just made up right now.
Yeah.
No, that's lovely. Thank you, son. Also, hey, everybody listening, if you would like to eventually be as close to us as Hassan and Laura are after years of listenership, you can jumpstart that relationship by emailing us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com and tell us what's going on in your cinematic life these days, what you're watching, what you're digging, what you're not liking, and why. That's the most crucial part, is the why. No, don't just email us and be like, I didn't like the Smashing Machine, and then don't put anything else. Like, you gotta kind of tell us why.
It is funny how the summer, I guess it's the tail end of the summer, the sort of start of the sort of award season has been a little bit light. People aren't going to the movies as much. Tron Ares bombed this week. Well, it didn't bomb, but kind of didn't play.
It was 30 mil.
Yeah, it didn't play as strongly as it would have. It's so fascinating to me that the conversation around One Battle After Another is around its budget, which is 150 mil. And everyone was so surprised at like that number being assigned to a PTA film. Of course, the movie was immediately moved out of the IMAX screenings for Tron Ares, which is a $190 million film. And nobody's batting an eyelid over that because, of course, that is a movie that we expect to cost that much money.
Yeah.
Smashing Machine has kind of dipped away pretty quickly after a lot of fanfare at, I believe it was Toronto, or I can't remember where it won the Best Director award. But as I mentioned, the Battle of the Safdies is kind of happening now, and Marty Supreme did play at the Lincoln Center at the New York Film Festival to rave reviews. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out towards the end of the year. Luca Guadagnino's film After the Hunt has come out as well. Luca Guadagnino is just pumping movies out left, right, and center right now. We missed his movie Queer last year, so it might be a good opportunity to catch up with that. There's plenty coming out. Please email us in, onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com, and tell us what you're watching. We also just did an episode on Prime Minister, which is a movie that is available to you streaming right now on HBO Max. If you have a child at home and you are stuck at home and can't go to the movies for any reason whatsoever, that's probably a great one to watch in these times of ours.
Sure, yeah. I was going to say in these times of ours that are not necessarily like the times in which the film All the President's Men takes place in.
Mm-hmm.
That was my wonderful transition.
You nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Could you tell us what All the President's Men is about?
I absolutely could. The Internet Movie Database states that, quote, the Washington Post reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein uncover the details of the Watergate scandal that leads to President Richard Nixon's resignation.
And it is a fascinating thing that this film came out just 2 years after that resignation. Perhaps even more fascinating to think about it as a time capsule right now, because the film kind of stops midway through the story. You know, like it actually, the famously the book does go on to detail everything, including and up to the resignation of Richard Nixon, which happened in 1974, basically from the fallout of the Watergate investigation run by the Washington Post, particularly Woodward and Bernstein. But the film actually stops kind of midway through that entire conversation. As the story kind of reaches an accelerating point in the investigation. And I wondered, you know, obviously today in 2025, that's a fascinating choice. In 1976, when this movie came out and the resignation of Richard Nixon was so fresh in the memory, I wonder if it was completely the right decision, because it was like, hey, these are the events that led up to that resignation, and we don't need to see them. It's just, you know, just like,
you know about the resignation because it's very public. This is the thing that all led to there. I think it's obviously the right choice for that moment. I also think it's the right choice even for now for the film. I think structurally that's what kind of makes it interesting. Like there are so few moments in modern American history that almost every American in the country can reference at least a little bit, knowing that Richard Nixon resigned. Even if you don't know what the Watergate scandal is, you know the words, the Watergate scandal, right? That's one of these touchstones that I really feel like is so ingrained in the American zeitgeist that this is still the perfect way, in my opinion. I know we're talking about the ending first, but like how to end this movie, because the interesting parts, at least to me, are what led to it. Because the totality of that, you know, we've seen played out on the biggest stage you possibly can.
Have you on Extra Credits done anything with Watergate?
We have not.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll do it at some point. But also this is another reason why we haven't, I think, is because we tend to try to not cover things that are that level of knowledge.
That are so well covered.
Yeah. Because because there's so many internet, you know, there's tons of videos out there on it, and that's fine. And the information's already there. So like we wouldn't be doing a service. And two, weirdly enough, we've found that popular things that are like that everyone tends to know, less people click.
Right.
So it's like a twofold thing, right?
That doesn't happen with us on this podcast, by the way.
No.
We got to cover those Marvel movies.
We do.
Yeah,
we do. We got to cover Tron Ares next week.
And we certainly do. I have hot takes about Tron Ares.
Listen, good. I cannot wait to. You've seen it at this point. I have not.
Yeah. So again, I hadn't really thought about the journalism side of it, because I had forgotten that was a big thing between us with regards to Spotlight. And it is obviously, this movie is the kind of precedent to Spotlight in terms of how it's structured and what it is actually doing. It is obviously shot by the great Gordon Willis, the sort of Prince of Darkness.
Yes.
It features many a suspenseful kind of inventions, such as the sort of the way Deep Throat, played by Hal Holbrook in this film, is portrayed. But yeah, I guess maybe that's a question for you is like, how does the sort of like the story about journalists trying to, fighting against the system play for you?
So this one played for me better than I think any of them that we've ever touched on the podcast have. And I think that is because literally of that cinematography. I think the fact that it sounds more silly. When I say this, I'll instantly take it back.
Okay.
It feels like it is shot more like a play. And the reason I say that is the takes are long and you get to live in the moment of what is happening. And with Hoffman and Redford, like they obviously ingrained themselves at the Post. They hung around with the two writers that they're portraying. That months of sort of like character research apparently went into their performances. And letting the camera stay in these long shots and letting us live in like the micro choices that these actors are making for these men, like made me far more interested in it than I'd say like essentially standard film editing of the time of say when Spotlight was made. Mm-hmm. I would really have to rewatch Spotlight again to sort of do the dichotomy and figure out the full reason why. I don't really want to do that. So that's my best guess at this point is sort of the way that this movie is shot and the way that it is edited and obviously the performances that support those choices.
Yeah. This is obviously also youngish, middle career Robert Redford. Famously, he optioned the book for around $450,000 from Woodward and Bernstein as it was happening. So they hadn't published a book at this point. It's kind of reminding me of when Kubrick got Arthur C. Clarke to start writing 2001: A Space Odyssey while he was making the movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
Redford had optioned the book, optioned the story because he'd kept reading their names and headlines and was interested in the idea, not so much about, in part about Watergate, but also about these two journalists and their relationship and how they come together to form this story. And then, Woodward and Bernstein are kind of, synonymous with breaking great stories. Both have, continue to write books. I think I read Rage, which was a few years ago about the sort of towards the tumultuous end of the pandemic.
Wow.
And I can't remember the book that they had written, but they'd written one, I believe it was Woodward, had written one about the pandemic and the pandemic response that I read as well. Obviously, great journalists. The writing is very, this ain't no Truman Capote or anything like that. It is very by the numbers, straightforward. Well, this is the information. This is what happened, and then this happened, and then this happened.
They're journalists.
Yeah, they're journalists, and they tell very, very straightforward journalist story. And I think the interesting thing between Woodward and Bernstein is the kind of difference in their approaches. Bernstein was known to be a better writer, Woodward to be perhaps a better journalist in terms of like hunting the information and making sure everything was, everything was accurate and told correctly. So I think there's a sort of great kind of, loose buddy cop thing in here that plays really nicely as well. There's a real hesitation in Redford's public persona in this movie as well, which is that, he was the handsome playboy socialite. There's a great meme going around right now about 3 Days of the Condor, which is something like 3 Days of the Condor is about a guy who dresses so fly that the FBI wants him dead. And if you've ever seen 3 Days of the Condor, goddamn, he's right. My other favorite one about that particular movie is an Out of Sight, where he's in the back of where George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez are in the back of the car, and they start quoting 3 Days of the Condor. And as a reference point for that movie, because Redford is so fly, he gets to kidnap a woman, and she of course will fall in love with him by the end of that movie.
I guess.
So there's a real what I find fascinating about his performance in this film is that as producer, as someone who didn't actually want to do the role to begin with, he really buries himself in like, okay, I've got to be true to whomever these people are and what their intentions were and how it was done. And I'm not going to be at all flamboyant, sexy, cool, or anything with this. I'm just going to be the guy.
This is the Smashing Machine.
That I would no, because the Smashing Machine is very much the Dwayne the Rock Johnson going, I want to be the guy. And what I'm saying with Robert Redford here is like, I don't want to be the guy. I want to make sure that the guy that I'm playing comes through.
Again, I have not seen the Smashing Machine, but I think from the Rock being this big, larger than life, not Playboy, but basically brand, and wanting to get back to doing a more subdued performance and actually flex the acting chops as opposed to just asking us if we can smell what he's cooking. Like,
my thing is that I don't even think it. I sometimes get the impression Redford doesn't even want to be in the movie. He's in it because he knows that he is a brand and it's worth it for him to be in the movie.
Oh, so it's the anti-Smashing.
That's what I think I'm getting at. It's like he doesn't even really want to be in the movie, but he's the producer of the film as well, and he went out of his way not to be cast in this movie, but eventually it was like, look, if I can get Robert Redford to be in this is Robert Redford putting his producer hat on. If I can get Robert Redford to be in my movie, then the budget that I'm going to spend on this is going to be justified because people are going to go see it.
Interesting.
Up against Dustin Hoffman, who I think is a well-regarded serious actor at this point. As well.
I was gonna say I was trying to figure out at what point in his career, was Hoffman like a box office draw at this point?
It's a box office draw. He's kind of like known. He's known in the sort of Al Pacino way of like he's a method actor. He's well known. Famous story was him in Marathon Man, where I think he's with the actor from I'm going blank on the name. The Gladiator actor, The Devils as well. I have completely gone blank on the name. Someone fact check me. But the famous story is he's on Marathon Man and he has to do a scene where he stayed up all night. And so what he does is he stays up all night, so that he has got that wiry eyes. And the other actor, whose name again I have gone completely blank on. It's on the tip. Oliver Reed.
There you
go. Says, my boy, have you thought about acting? Which I think is the famous line that Oliver Reed says. So I believe it's Oliver Reed. Somebody can fact check me on that. But Hoffman is known as the kind of workman-like performer who can really deliver, the Pacino-esque kind of performance. Sure. And in this movie, he does. He's kind of like the wiry. The quoted scene that you have here is like, you would be tired too if you were drinking 40 cups of coffee on this scene. As we've discussed on this podcast before, I find these kinds of procedurals really comforting.
You love them.
I love them because I love like the step from here to here. And this movie in particular, and it is with Spotlight as well, I guess, and with a bunch of movies that I love. Like I love The Insider for the same reason, and Zodiac. These real like sort of like clinical procedurals where the movie is immersed in the details and really cares about like how this person connects to this person. And in a way, like they don't even show who that person is. Like when you get to like Gordon Liddy in this film, who's like a character, like a person who was on the committee to re-elect the president creep, which is just the best acronym of all time.
Yeah.
Like you can see the characters are really concerned about who Gordon Liddy is. Or when they talk about the fact that Stans was given the check by Ken Dahlem. Dahlem? I think it was Dahlem. Dahlem, yeah. And it was Stans who had the check and issued it out. And the things that I loved is like when I went to listen to the book, there's that line when Ken Dahlem, God, I'm sorry about that. Says, I've just been through a traumatic event. My neighbor's wife has been kidnapped. That's a true story. There's a whole movie, a whole thing about that kidnapping. Because he was a very wealthy person who lived in Mississippi, whose neighbor was kidnapped and whose ransom was paid for $1 million and was tied to a tree for a week or something along those lines.
Jesus.
So like, my point is like in the sort of thoroughfare of writing a film like this, William Goldman was the person who wrote the script. This would be kind of, that would be a detail that's like, what, like, do we need that detail in here, in order to streamline the story? But no. That's a story. That's part of the detail here. And that to me, I guess I find comforting for a couple of reasons. I love the way my brain gets tickled by those little details, which are like so clearly important to the film. And then I have to like figure out why is it important? I love that kind of like that process in my head. And then the second part is I love stories about people against the system. I love films about people, up against a monolithic force that they cannot quite comprehend. And in this film, they say it quite explicitly. It's like we have pieces of the puzzle and we don't know what it's supposed to look like, you know? And it's like, and the more and more I've watched it, I watched it 3 times for this episode, because we had a couple of times. And I would just find myself like flipping it on every now and again and just watching it through. And the more and more I watch it, the more it's like, wow, this is like an enormous puzzle. And the problem that Woodward and Bernstein have is that it's actually kind of a simple puzzle, but they're right in the middle of it and they have to figure out how to connect all the dots to it. And I love them trying to like maneuver through all of that. And as an audience member, like the way the film does this is like, we don't really see any details. The only thing we see dramatized is a little bit of the Watergate burglary.
Yeah.
We don't see any of the internal meetings where they're handing out money to advise, you know, to people to like plan these burglaries, or the rat fucking as it gets, you know, kind of gets called later. We don't see any of that. We don't even see the biggest outcome of this movie, which is the Richard Nixon resigning from the presidency. All we see are these guys like working through the paperwork. And it literally is like crossing names off of a list, looking at like what library books did Howard Hunt or the entire White House take about, you know, the Kennedys doing Kappa Quidditch.
So the interesting part there is we also do get a lot. Again, I don't want to think about other documents movies because I tend to not like them, and therefore I don't have a lot of reference in my brain space left over for them. But the thing that I did actually really enjoy here was, weirdly, a lot of the phone calls.
Yeah. They're sexy.
Because
really
like,
sexy.
well, because like they highlight this really interesting thing of people slipping or giving information or not wanting to give information, or and the thing that I think I go back to how the movie is shot and how the movie is cut. About all of those things, when you live in a shot like that, about like making a phone call and someone slips and says something and then changes it, you get to like sort of live in the moment that like we would all do on the phone there and be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
No, you didn't say that. Like, I'm sorry, huh? And then like having to live with it, talk with your coworker who's around you at that moment, etc. And I really, really liked those moments. I will say, even though, like, again, this genre is not my favorite, it is those things that sort of kept me in it. I found, weirdly, even though I think it is lit very well, the Deep Throat scenes. Deep Throat played by
Hal Holbrook.
What was it?
Hal Holbrook.
Hal Holbrook.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. I wonder if they didn't quite like, I wasn't like, oh man, like in those scenes, because I feel like the meeting in the dark car garage is such a cliche at this point.
But this is where the cliche.
This is where the cliche. This
Yeah.
is the beginning. This is the John Carter from Mars of sci-fi.
Sure.
Film. So like the like I look at that, I'm like, man, this is where it all came from. But because I've seen it a million times, it doesn't, for me personally, have the gravitas. That doesn't mean that it does not deserve it, that this is where it came from. But I always find that interesting in when I have to sort of divorce my emotional opinion from fact-based respect, I guess would be the, does that make sense? Like, because I like to look at movies like this, especially in genres that I don't tend to gravitate towards like that, because I don't want to be unfair to a film because I tend to not like it when they do a bunch of research and we watch them do it.
Yeah.
I want to give it a fair shake. And this is obviously one of the greats, if not the greatest one of these sort of document movies.
Yeah.
I also think that I loved is it Ben Bradley's the editor, right?
Yeah,
played by Jason Robards.
Robards, yeah.
Man, what a
Oscar winner, Jason Robards.
What a cool, like, again, sort of supporting character.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine that the editor was somewhat similar to that with all of the research that everyone went into, right?
I mean, you know, Ben Bradley is an incredibly important figure in the newspaper world and in political journalism. To the point that Tom Hanks played him in The Post. and Liev Schreiber played his son in Spotlight.
Yeah.
You know,
but the interesting thing about this portrayal of him here, and I think in those movies too, so maybe this is just who this guy is.
Yeah.
He's not the cliche editor-in-chief sort of dude.
Yeah.
Right? He like actually is not like, he's not mad at anybody. He's not screaming about deadlines and doing whatever. He's like just wants the best journalism he can do. This guy might be good for it. Maybe not. Okay, you work with this guy. Like it's all.
It's also, I think there's a point at which Bradley says something along the lines of, I can't do the work of my journalist for me, so I've got to trust my journalist.
Yes.
And I don't like trusting anybody. And, there's this thing, which is that early on in one of the editorial meetings, he asked the question, well, someone says, I think this is a dangerous story for the Washington Post. And Bradley asked, waits till the meeting's over. And he says, so how dangerous is this? And the other editor says, well, it's not just the fact that we're using unnamed sources on this, that we are fighting a losing battle. Richard Nixon is all but guaranteed to win the nomination. He's all but guaranteed to win the presidency. The story Watergate is falling out, is amounting to nothing but a storm in a teacup. And yet we are still pursuing this. And Bradley from that moment forward kind of starts questioning the guys really heavily at that point. He's like, what is it with this story? Why can't we get anyone on the record here? Why is everybody on deep background? Why is our main source of information some guy in a parking garage that we can't get access to? Who will not go on the record on this story. And he's like annoyed by the fact of this. And then I watched the documentary about Bradley as well. Bradley's really interesting in that he is famously not to the manner born, but kind of waspy.
Okay.
In the sense that he was neighbors with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and was friends with him. And as RFK went into JFK Jr., John F. Kennedy Jr. So he, sailed on the yachts with Jackie Kennedy and John Kennedy. He spoke fluent French. He was so his role as a Washington Post editor, when he happened to be former neighbors and really good friends with the president, really sticks out. And the White House at the time really calls him out on this. Calls his personal reputation out on this. Is like, this is a Kennedy sympathizer. And he of course they're going against the Nixon presidency. Bradley is a really fascinating character. I think it's famously a lot of people were wondering how this performance won an Oscar because it's he's not a central, he's so short on screen,
but it's subdued, but you remember it all of the time he's not in the movie, you do remember him.
As a young film goer watching this movie, all I remember is the main thing I remember of him saying was, "You don't got it." You don't got the story. And now the more I watch it, the more I realize that how much Woodward really in particular responds to Bradley and what Bradley's trying to say, which is that we are about to go up against the White House essentially, and we're about to call the most powerful people in America crooks. And so if we're going to do that, we have to be absolutely buttoned up. And then there are moments as we stand by the boys, we stand by the guy, we stand by our reporting. So I think, Robards is kind of incredible. Hassan mentioned watching Magnolia recently. I watched that just a couple of weeks ago as well. And Robards is in that film. I feel like he got nominated for an Oscar for that, but it was towards the end of his life. He was smoking a lot of, he was dying as he was making that movie, and he plays a dying man. And it's an incredible performance. He is this, sort of otherworldly actor, yet looks like an everyday schlub. That's his shtick. He's just like an everyday schlub, Yeah. I love him in this, and I he's played much more polished by Tom Hanks in The Post. Did you remember Tom Hanks playing him?
Here's the thing, and this is not. I don't mean this as a detriment to Tom Hanks. I have a hard time oftentimes separating Tom Hanks from his performances. like at the actor versus the thing. Like, I mean, there's definitely times it's happened, but I feel like The Post was one where I was like, oh, it's Tom Hanks.
My recollection, and I've only seen the film the one time, but we did do it on the podcast, was that, and again, because I'm interested in Bradley, and we had just watched Spotlight as well, and that sort of thing, is that Hanks plays Bradley much more closer to what his actual persona was, which is that he was slick. Bradley was known to be like a slick talker, like very charming. And in this, he's Robards plays him as very gruff and kind of like, he hasn't got time for that shit.
Not gruff. Yeah. Like respectfully doesn't have time for it.
And what's, again, I see a lineage in these films. The movie that I love is The Paper, the Ron Howard film that we've done on the Taste of Time podcast. Mm-hmm. Jason Robards is in that playing like the newspaper editor. Like the owner of the paper in that movie.
But on our podcast, we've done the Ben Bradley trilogy.
We have done The Post, All the President's Men, and Spotlight.
There we go.
Yeah. And Liev Schreiber plays Bradley's son so quietly, so like he's so like devastatingly quiet in that film.
Yeah.
Again, I watch Spotlight all the time, so I kind of think about it a lot. It's filled to the brim with like really, I love like the uneasy performances in all of us. So the person I'm also thinking about is Jane Alexander, the bookkeeper who kind of like, who Bernstein kind of invades her house at one point and is like, can I smoke a cigarette? And then just keeps pressing her for questions. And she is like really uneasy about everything that's happened, but wants to say something. It's really great writing and to actually like get that sense that she wants to say something, but she also doesn't want to be caught up in this whole mess anymore. She was just a bookkeeper. She's so good in that. Like everyone in this, Ned Beatty's in one scene. He was also on Network in the same year.
Hell, F. Murray Abraham is a cop.
One scene in a cop. Yeah. He's like, put your fucking hands up. And he's great. He's wearing a bucket hat. He's great in this. Everyone kind of like brings it. My favorite this time around as an actor, I hadn't really watched a lot of, but Robert Walden, who plays Segretti. And Segretti is this interesting figure that comes out of this whole thing, out of reading the book and watching this time around. Segretti is kind of the guy that does the deeds. He's like the guy who's being paid to actually do the rat fucking. And his whole thing is like, we were just kind of clowning around, we were just doing dumb shit, like, sending letters to the editor. And there's this whole letter about the Canucks, which Segretti wasn't part of, but he might have had a hand in like getting out there. But it was like, I can't remember. It was who wrote the letter. The Canuck letter was written by, it's a famous letter written by Edmund Muskie.
Okay.
It implies that he racially slurs Canadians and so entirely dropped him out of the race. But it was written by someone it was written by Ken Clausen, who used to work for the Washington Post and was part of the rat fucking. And it's mentioned in this movie kind of like in some detail. The thing that's also really beautiful that I like love now is like the rat fucking is just this kind of like, it's almost like Animal House kind of like buffoonery. It is this like series of like dumb tricks that the Republican Party would play on the Democratic Party in order to get them to win, to lose elections, the Democrats to lose elections. But as Deep Throat kind of says out loud, these weren't dumb guys and shit got out of hand. And it eventually involved the entire apparatus of the entire U.S. Intelligence agency. And that's wild, right?
Do you think, not to pontificate too much on our current state.
Yeah. This is where this all leads to.
Yeah, but do you think like it being smart guys doing dumb shit back then it feels like the polar opposite about dumb.
But that's what Deep Throat is saying. Is like these guys aren't dumb. These guys aren't smart guys.
Yeah,
they're dumb guys. They're dumb guys who thought they were being clever, and shit got out of hand as soon as the Watergate burglars got caught. And like if you think about, obviously, when you think about All the President's Men, we are now going to eventually pivot at some point to the current Trump presidency. But for example, the felony indictments that he was actually convicted of, which were for campaign fraud.
Yeah.
And it was for using campaign funds to pay for, I believe it was Stormy Daniels, to not publish a story.
Yeah.
Which amounts to campaign fraud because it prevented the American population from knowing more information about a candidate that would have been meaningful information to them. And the fact that he covered it up. Is it the level of size of Watergate? I'm not entirely sure. Watergate's also a dumb story.
It is a dumb story.
It is a dumb story, like it's a dumb story about
but it was back in the time when a small dumb story. It was back in a time when I don't want to sound pedantic, but when like honesty meant something.
Yeah, and yes, honesty meant something, and we believed we had faith in our electoral process and integrity, and we had just come off of an assassination.
Of course, it was less of that. Like I think it's less of like the American people trusting the process, and even the people doing the rat fucking still respected the norms enough when they got caught to be like fuck, and
I think Ezra Klein was probably quoting a book when I heard him say this, but there was an interesting idea that the reason why Nixon resigned was twofold. One was the tapes. Like there were tapes of him admitting to understanding what was going on in the Watergate investigation, and those tapes were released. Nixon famously recorded every conversation within the White House. This cinematically led to kind of a fascination with surveillance in cinema, and surveillance recording. We got films like The Conversation, Clute, I think in some plays to the tape recordings, but they came earlier. Blowout, those kinds of films as well. We became really fascinated with this idea of like recorded conversation.
And now we just get truths posted out tweets, to Pam Bondi saying to prosecute political enemies, and as if it was a personal email. But no one cares.
Dumb guys.
But the problem is now it's interesting. The problem now, it feels like, the people that are doing the stuff are dumb guys, but like also we as the country are the dumb guys because we don't seem to care. Or not enough people seem to care.
So I was coming back to like why Nixon resigned. One is the sort of presentation of the tapes, the ongoing persistent investigation by the Washington Post and several other newspapers as well, by the way. The sort of like beautiful mystery of who is Deep Throat, kind of became a thing as well. And the fact that it turned out it was revealed it was Mark Felt, the former deputy director of the FBI, so a really senior person within the apparatus. But also the thing that Ezra Klein kind of pointed to was that Nixon had lost support of Senate and congressional Republicans, so they were going to dump him anyway,
right?
And so would have indicted him for crimes. So he resigned kind of in early of the fact, knowing the fact that he didn't have their support.
Again, back when there were three equal and separate branches of government.
Yeah.
Like that, that's what the point was. That's why it existed like that. It wasn't loyalty to party. It was loyalty to country.
So in other words, Nixon would have possibly gotten away with this all had he actually kind of circled the wagons in terms of the congressional Republicans.
But that's not exactly how it worked, at least at that time. Like there's been times where it is all, wagons have been circled in the past, of course, but
and now it is certainly the case
I'm
now.
saying before now too.
It's sad, right?
It just so let's turn it back a little bit to cinema. So assuming that we make it through the times that we are in, when let's pretend for a moment that we get through this and there's the same amount of time in the future from now as there was from the Watergate scandal, like to this point. Like for instance, like
2
the
years.
same. No, not. I mean, sure. Okay, let's do that.
That's the amazing thing about All the President's Men is it comes so concurrently with the events.
Let's do that. 2 years from now, the docu thing about whatever, and I say this laughably, whatever takes Trump down. Jesus.
Yeah.
Epstein files? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is, when this movie comes out, it won't be as good because it's not a clear line. It's a fire hose of norms being broken, laws being ignored, cruelty to the point. Like it's like every day is 2 or 3 things. Where this was like one thing Well, it was a bunch of small things that led to one big thing, but they were trying to be quiet about it, and therefore, like you can make a better story from it because it's not numbing and confusing.
And it comes down to this other factor that I think is really is the nostalgic factor that I actually really enjoy in this film as well. Is like watching Woodward and Bernstein have to transcribe each other's notes for me is like a really just like, I love watching this because like, you know, like Woodward hands Bernstein his actual paper notes, which are his scribbles. And we see what those scribbles look like at some point. He's doing drawings, there's circular diagrams and that sort of thing. And my point about that is that we did have trusted sources of news that had to be verified. We didn't live in a 24/7 news cycle where news stories needed to come out as quickly as they could. And even if they were wrong, they could just be reprinted, you know, they could just be corrected automatically. And I think that's why we don't have the same kind of wherewithal about this particular moment. You know, if you look at, for example, the sort of post-Bush years, you know, we got a film like W by Oliver Stone. We got films like The Report about, you know, Abu Ghraib, you know, and torture and interrogation. The Hurt Locker, for example, not The Hurt Locker, but the movie she did after that I have actually gone blank on, the Catherine Bigelow film. You know, it is surprising to me that we haven't. I guess the fact of the matter is, one thing that has happened in this administration in the last 6 months is that has it been 6 months? It's been 7 months or so. It's been close to
it could be 100 years.
Yeah. Is that there's also been a sort of coalescence of the media institutions to bend the knee to Donald Trump. You know, like we have seen that happen, not just like literally in the form of like printing popular stories. I don't think that happens. But like George Stephanopoulos being sued for saying something about Trump, you know, and like and CBS settling on that. So whether a film would get made about Donald Trump, you know, like about January 6th, for example, in the same way that it would, you know, that All the President's Men would come out, I'm not so sure. There was a film about Donald Trump that came out that we did with Sebastian Stan just last year, but it didn't feel, you know, like there was a sort of...
That didn't feel, that was a biopic free politics.
Yeah, and it felt like, remember, the interesting thing that happened there was that Sebastian Stan was kind of like really vying for the Oscar for that movie, which is important. If you look at a film like All the President's Men, the Oscar nominations really matter to cementing that place in legacy. Yeah. But the thing that was interesting about Sebastian Stan when he was doing roundtables for, you know, Donald Trump, he was also doing the other film at the same time, A Different Man. I think he was nominated for both.
Yeah.
You know, people didn't want to do roundtable conversations with him because they didn't want to get into basically a conversation about Donald Trump, because a conversation about Donald Trump is divisive. And, you know, that might be the key factor of why Donald Trump survives over Richard Nixon, is that he has coalesced the wagons around him. And, you know,
well, my political opinion of why it actually functions is not only are the wagons circled around him, the wagons have been circling for the better part of 60 years, getting into place for when the most useful idiot comes along, and then they can just do whatever they want to do.
And we are in that moment. You know, like, again, if January 6th wasn't, you know, like enough to cement the legacy of an individual, I always come back to, and I think I've talked about this many times. Maybe I haven't on the episode, on the podcast, but the thing that I would just be fascinated to look back on with a cinematic lens is Sharpie Gate. You remember Sharpie Gate?
Yeah, with the hurricane.
Yeah, with the hurricane, because we gaslit the weather. You know what I mean? Like Trump gaslit us. on the
we
weather.
Didn't gaslight the weather,
but
we got gaslit about the weather.
That would be, in my opinion, a career-defining end of any politician for the ages, because it is so dangerous, so dumb, and so futile in exercise, because it doesn't, you know, like the only reason he wanted to prove that is that he mistakenly tweeted about Alabama beforehand. If anyone's interested, go back and look up, you know, what happened during Sharpie Gate. You know, it's a famous story of a Sharpie being drawn on a weather map to suggest where a hurricane would land when in fact it would not land there. And that to me is the seedling of the COVID response. It is the arguing of facts that do not matter in the face of actual real human catastrophe. And And I'm surprised, I guess, America's either numbness or tolerance to this kind of behavior. And even to the point of voting the guy back in again. And what's fascinating about that is where are the Woodwards and Bernsteins? I mean, actually, they're still here. They're still writing books as well. Maybe those books just aren't being optioned and turned into movies by our Robert Redfords. Like, where are our George Clooney's, or whatever, spearheading these kinds of movies because they matter, And that's that kind of whole, the apparatus of the media ecosystem, the sort of reflective arm of cinema to like look back at a person in that way, in the same way, like that All the President's Men does, so concurrently with the actual events as they happen. That's 1976 to 1974. That's the wild thing.
I know. Yes, but also I think
technically we should be faster than that. We should be able to make a movie immediately.
The issue is where the public is.
Yeah.
I mean, there is so much else happening. The entirety of life seems like it is a distraction.
Yeah.
People are tired.
And there's too much coming at us, and look, and I'm speaking for myself now.
Yeah.
I am exhausted by my phone.
My God.
I'm exhausted by the amount of content I consume on a daily basis and how much dumber I think I'm getting because of it.
It's weird that I've gotten to a point where I feel like video games are an actual better use of my time than reading the news.
Sure.
Like it's an odd place, because don't get me wrong, I've always thought that the video games have an incredible amount of value, but for my mental well-being and emotional resonance and narrative discussions and mechanical design, I feel as though I'm getting far more enriched playing a round of Night Rain than doom scrolling on my phone.
Yeah. 100%.
Which is insane to me, because you think about it on paper, you're like, oh, it's great that I can get all this information at anytime I want it.
But our ability to filter that information as to what is important, and perhaps we are like you and I, or me particularly, I'm circling in on All the President's Men because it seems to reflect like a bygone era when a story like that could bring down a president, or
now we're confronted with a story like that a week.
A day.
I was being generous, but like I think truly there is a Watergate-esque level of conspiracy and or crime a week.
Yeah.
And it is, and you look at it, and it's funny because I can only imagine what people in the 70s were feeling when like they saw accountability.
Yeah.
And they saw, I'm curious about people even that were like strong Nixon supporters.
Yeah.
When that happened and he got caught and they saw the thing, I'm sure there are people like, no, it's framed. It's like, whatever. But it feels like, at least in the lens of history that I've seen it, people were like, oh no. Okay. No.
Well, and I think it comes through in the movie, when he goes to visit, Sloan, I think it is the treasurer of CREEP.
Yeah.
And, he says, look, I'm a Republican, and I think Woodward says, so am I. And the difference there is that them being Republicans didn't define their identity, and it didn't mean that they were loyal to the president.
It was a policy. It was about policy. It wasn't about people.
Exactly. And, I love this thing where, when we talk about the Epstein files, people are like, well, what happens if you're going to, if you see Bill Clinton on the Epstein files? I'm like, oh no.
Not Democratic darling Bill Clinton. Like none of us know. No, I'll make a blanket statement.
Yeah.
No Democrat gives a fuck if Bill Clinton is on that list.
And the point, like the meme that I've seen come back is like, oh no, I'll have to burn my Bill Clinton merch.
Yeah, all that Bill Clinton merch will just go away.
And my entire identity will be gone.
No, you take everyone that is doing these awful things and you hold them accountable. I don't give a fuck what team you're on.
Yeah. And that's that, that scene. There's actually a sort of a real funny glance when Woodward says that, where Bernstein kind of turns to him and goes, I didn't realize, I didn't know you were a Republican. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that, because the Washington Post, for example, is not like the stalwart of like Democratic.
No, of course
news,
not. And I think it's interesting. I think the reason why I gravitated more towards this movie than any other sort of like document movie is not only the fact that it's made incredibly well, but that I'm sad we don't live in that time anymore. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
The 70s was rife with problems.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the element of the government, like, look, the governments are always lying to you about certain things. That's how you keep a society in order. But back then, it felt like not everything was a lie or couldn't be trusted. And there was at least some level of the public holding people in power to account. Again, not all the time. It is not perfect. There were tons of problems back then, too.
You're 100% correct. But I think what the nostalgia that I feel for the film and for the time was that if we talk about what the actual crime of Watergate was, it wasn't just the burglary. It was this idea that the Republican National, the GOP, had basically engaged in a policy, to the point of financial fundraising for a policy of rat fucking the opposition. And so that meant, writing op-eds, carpet bombing events with like flyers from the opposition, writing things like, like the Canuck letter, to like suggest that the opposition was actually slurring. So, like all that stuff.
Stuff like Kristi Noem's new airport video.
Yeah, all of that nonsense. But the nostalgia I feel was that these two, at least within the vernacular of this film, two journalists managed to pluck all of those things together and coalesce them around this idea of follow the money. This is how this actually happened. And this is how it, and this is why it's against our democratic principles.
And I think the reason why I think I'm nostalgic for this film is even today, when there are law enforcement or government agencies following the money, it also doesn't matter. The $50,000 in a bag whole nonsense that's going on that the FBI literally has on tape.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Well, we've gotten to the stage now as well where we don't even believe the tapes anymore. It doesn't matter. Like when Watergate happened and then those tapes were released, that
people bought it. Well,
yeah.
I think I judge it off literally performance, right? No one with this money thing in the bag, at least these days, has even the guy has not denied it. No one has said that this didn't happen because they know that will essentially fuck them. They just talk around it. And it's infuriating.
Well, because one thing that Donald Trump has taught us is that you can get away with anything if you just continue to talk.
Yeah.
If you just continue to occupy the attention of the media, it doesn't matter. Like January 6th, like the Muslim ban, the Sharpie Gate, a million, kids in cages, a million things.
Yeah.
As long as you keep talking, as long as you capture the attention of the media with a new shiny thing every other day, then, how could a Woodward and a Bernstein kind of keep up enough
and cut through it? You can't.
And that, again, that's also why I guess why I love films like Spotlight, why I love films like this, like with Zodiac, is they require, they're also part of the obsessive personality. It is the person who is like willing to drill down into the minutia of this particular story and gather all the little tiny details and put it together.
And I think I like this movie because it's a representation of a time when that worked.
Yeah. and some sexy split diopter scenes.
Yeah, that's true.
Lots of split
Don't forget that split diop.
Yeah. I didn't know this until this watching, was that they had recreated the entire Washington Post newsroom.
Oh, really?
I didn't know. That was a fact that I was unaware of.
Oh, I think I did read something where like they literally took like trash from their trash cans and shit.
And they rebuilt the entire thing in like a 30,000 feet warehouse in Burbank somewhere and rebuilt the entire office.
Amazing.
And incredible.
Very fun.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, anyway, this has been the only podcast about the film All the President's Men and current day politics. This is one I feel like even if we get any complaints about discussing politics while talking about All the President's Men, I don't
know what to tell you.
I literally don't know what to tell you if you clicked on this. But Shahir, when you are not just fucking the ever-living hell out of some rats, where can folks find you?
Oh my goodness. Please don't look at my search history. On my website, suvanova.com. That's SUVANOVA.com. Matt, when you are falling off of a wall and being put together all over again, where can people find you?
You can find me covered with yolk, I guess, over my website, Extra History and Extra Credits on the YouTube machines. Also, please check out over on YouTube the Magic the Gathering collaboration I did with Jetlag the Game over on their YouTube page. And I think that's everything.
That's everything. What are we looking at next week?
Twan.
We're going to be doing Twan AOEs.
Twan AOEs.
Twan AOEs.
Twan
I've
AOEs.
seen it. You haven't seen it
I
yet.
haven't seen it. I'm looking forward to hearing the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's remarkable how much a movie is being marketed by the people who made the soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a fun thing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of hot takes about Tron. We've talked about it.
I'm going to have to combat you. I'm going to have the coldest takes. I'm going to have the gazpacho of takes.
Oh, I've got so many hot takes. But I will say I enjoyed taking my son to see an IMAX 3D version of that. He had been wanting to see it the whole year. We watched Tron Legacy quite a bit at my house. I do think Tron Legacy is not a great movie. But
I like Tron Legacy.
But we watch it quite a lot just because it's so visually striking.
I also think it's one of the only live action films that uses 3D well.
That is true. So it was fun to see. It cost us $90 for the three of us to go. I know, to go to an IMAX screen.
You want to go again?
You want to pay?
No.
Is that what happens with the groomsmen? You have to pay for the groomsmen movies?
I get you like a present, but then you get all the other stuff.
Have I been a groomsman before?
I don't know. Have you?
I don't think I have.
Well, welcome to Thunderdome, buddy.
Okay. Who's the best man?
Nick Parker.
Oh, snap. So I am a lieutenant to Nick Parker.
You are. You'll have to listen to him.
I have to listen. Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's the worst. That is the
well,
worst.
you report to him now.
Yeah.
My hands are tied. This government's getting too out of control. Anyway, we will Tron AOEs you next week. And until then, have a lovely time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.